All right, so we're back, and this time I'd like to sort of jump in with you guys with Yahyel information. Our last talk was more sort of personal downloads and personal information on the Eclipse and everything else. But, well, I guess there's some, you guys had your Yahyel channels and downloads, and I'm sure I was getting some information as well. But I'm curious. I wanted to ask, what kind of messages have you been receiving, or could you share that are specific to the Yahyel civilization, their interaction with humanity, and where we're at, where we're going? Any kind of messages along these lines that might have been coming through lately?
We're looking at each other now through the camera. In a sense, the Dorapan and the Pandora are really right now relevant topics, I think, and one of the most recent downloads, which in a sense, they hook into each other, and we just spoke about them.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit more. So we know. So a Dorapan or Pandora's box. So it's sort of like anything goes is my translation of that. But what if we could go into a little bit deeper to define it a little bit more, even
that's a good idea.
Anything goes is anything. But in your perspective, from your exchange with this information, what does that feel like to you? How do you interpret that?
So for me, I feel that we're raising our frequency, or at least some of us are. And those that do immediately through the higher self invite a broader spectrum of possibilities. And like we said before, I'm just going to put a little bit of a recap of the last discussions to start this off. By inviting more bandwidth of possibilities that we are consciously aware of, it's not that the possibilities weren't there yet. They were always there, we just couldn't see them. So now we can tune in with them more consciously. We are being invited by our own higher selves with our co-created collective consciousness to tune in more and learn how to navigate all of these particular possibilities. I think above all, the interstellar races that we are focused on, that we are communicating with, the hybrid races, this is my personal opinion, I feel that they're so close to us. They so beautifully bridge and understand where we are now, and it's like they can look at our higher selves and they see what that next step is going to look like if we follow our highest joy and excitement. So I think if we are focusing on the Yahyel in this sharing, they're very, very excited about standing by our sides without interfering, but just giving, reaching out a hand, giving open invitations, open suggestions as to how we might want to fine-tune that navigation system. And let's see, maybe you just want to jump in right now.
Sure.
I feel that. So, yes, go ahead.
I don't know what I'm going to say, but I guess you're right. No, so what I've been really learning from them and what Bella's been bringing through is a bit more so of exactly where they are, the realm that they're existing in. And like you said, they're so close to us, they're this bridge. She actually uses that exact word, and she says that their realm is fully in fourth density, but also kind of like this bridge consciousness. And they're existing, we could think of it almost as low or as high as they could go while still being in their vibration, their density expression. They're right as close to us as they possibly can go. And it's in that state that's kind of like what to me what we're calling a Doropan, which is the door opening space, the space that is like the imagination realm where we're all co-creating each other. And what's been really expansive for me to fully understand more and putting together some of the information that I've been receiving, and from what Arjuna said, and also from what Yeshua has brought through, pertaining to a bit more about maybe who the Yahyel actually are in regards to their greater story, and not just the version that was more relevant for Bashar to be talking about, because there's all of these different versions of them. I do feel that in my gut, that there are pardon me, those of their race that were at one point in time, like long ago, maybe when Pandora was actually, or Pangea was actually in existence here in this earth, but in a different density before we made certain agreements, and feeling all these different timelines of them, and how it just opens up to all these different possibilities, and like you said, Reuben, like anything goes kind of space. And that's in this new place that we're meeting, in that fourth place that's off of the triad, or as we were talking about in the video before, like the third place, the 1, 2 plus the 3. That to me is kind of what a Doropan is.
You know, would they be almost kind of a obviously all of these ET races are other versions of ourselves, but maybe a little closer to home version than, say, the Pleiades or the the other civilizations out there, the Syrians, even the Sasani. If they were, do you think they might be more almost an alternate timeline of Earth?
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of like
And there's an alternate timeline too of maybe even what I hesitate, because I don't like to label too much or to draw, but there are certain things that are relevant, because there are those of us that have agreed to have certain interactions with the Greys, and our DNA has been activated in a certain way, and the timeline, at least, this is where things get a little lost in the details, but Bella says that she comes from a more modern version of the Yahyel, a product that has participated in the Grey Hybrid program. And then there's those of us that have also done that. And it's really just because of their density experience, because of their consciousness experience, that they experience their life in a different way. But like, I think our DNA like really isn't that much different. They may look a little bit more alien, but I think that's part of our translation right now, is we're all kind of shifting into what the versions are. And it's, to me, feels like something that was very much rooted in what the original intention for the human expression was. And then we also agreed to put all of these different things on top of it and take all these different twists and turns. And those of us that are here in planet Earth kind of went one way, and the Yahyel went another way. And then we're circling back to really creating that 6th hybrid race, or going into that 7th hybrid race ultimately. And I think, Wieteke, you actually said before that the Bible has actually said something like the first shall be the last and the last shall be the first. This type of, I think that's where my brain is pulling that from. And that's really what it feels like, is there is this coming together of the family, yeah, and different versions of what we are understanding and redefining is actually human.
Yeah.
One of the downloads I just got as we're talking about this is, the Adam and Eve story and the Lilith story. Before Adam and Eve came to Earth, there was already a pre-existing race of almost elvenish elemental energy, and then Adam. This is in the biblical, pre-biblical stories. I don't know where this stories come from, but wasn't Lilith like Adam's first wife or something like that before Eve was created? Which the images I were getting was the Yahyel, where this, before Adam and Eve came to the planet, maybe the Yahyel, the versions that we're interacting now, is on an alternate timeline where current humanity, before the story of Adam, came to sort of integrate and hybridize in that state. Maybe there was another evolutionary path of pre-human human, before the what we understand as Adam and Eve story, the human experience before that, perhaps.
I missed the part that unfortunately your sound broke up.
Oh, okay, no. So, can you hear me now? Is everything?
Yeah, now it's
good again.
Okay, so I was sort of saying, the download I was getting while Gita was explaining and you guys were talking was perhaps the Yahyel, or a version of the Yahyel that we're interacting with now, is on an alternate timeline, pre-Adam and Eve story. So that on Earth, because we have the story of Lilith and Adam and Eve, or Adam coming down to Earth, supposedly, and mating with Lilith, or trying to mate with Lilith, and there was some resistance, and then the gods created Eve to then create the human race. So maybe the Yahyel were pre-Earth humans in that Lilith timeline before Adam came down. So what if there was no Adam and Eve, but Earth still evolved in a specific direction without the Adam and Eve story? Is that making any sense?
Yeah.
I never fully tuned in with this.
I'll take this one.
Yeah, you take it.
So you're onto something, definitely, Reuben. And the Adama and the Eva, the Adam and the Eve, is like a certain generation, or like a certain issue, we could say. And then the Lilith story does have her own archetype and her own true story that we're kind of unraveling. And when you brought this through, I was almost like, I felt this like, yes, awesome. But then also, that's as far as we can go.
That's what I'm feeling.
I get like we're definitely onto something, but like, stay tuned and we'll see where it goes. Because the Lilith character has been someone that I've been cluing into, that archetype, and I don't have all the answers, like, at all. I just know that energy is starting to come in, and she's got certain stories for us, and it's part of the puzzle piece of maybe stringing this greater story together. Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. And then I wanted to tie it back to something that you were saying, Wieteke, that it's like they have, they're able to see our higher selves, or have more of a communication with our higher selves. Kind of the way that I'm translating this within the last few weeks, like I said in the video we did before, is there's something now where my higher self, or my twin, that version of me that's on the mountaintop that can see right into the valley, really does feel like a part of it's me. It's not necessarily within that like divine, it's not my oversoul, it's like me. And she's almost, saying I'm like 10, 15 years down the line, and that version of me and the Yahyel are like standing side by side. Like they're, I don't know exactly how. It's like I almost feel like that block again, like the details don't matter in that way, but they're very aware of each other, and they're in concert with each other and in collaboration, and like you said, Wieteke, and like just they're so happy too that we've kind of reached this new level of whatever, the Trinity consciousness that we're in.
Right.
This new phase. Yeah,
absolutely. There's so much excitement. I love it. So when we go back so far as to the Adam and Eve, so the image I've been given is this first of all, I already said indeed to you, Gita, in this earlier conversation that we had, that there are excerpts from the Bible that actually apply, and of course excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita, excerpts from, Quran, you name it. A lot of holy scripts actually in one way or another refer to, in their own words, in their own symbolism, to ETs and the connections that we have always had throughout the past, in a sense, or the many versions of past that we can flip through. And so the image that Arjuna has shown to me in this is that with the first shall be the last, this snake is like making this infinity symbol and biting its own tail. But that means a much bigger thing that I haven't really heard anybody speak about yet, which I am still busy trying to wrap my mind around, which is why I couldn't immediately reply to this question when you go back to before Adam and Eve. I don't think we can even fathom rationally right now what kind of a shift is actually happening or is opening up to us right now, because I think Bashar has begun to explain that the actual gift that the Greys are leaving us now is that we will not have to go through a ton of stages of evolution. And you have to keep that in mind, in a sense. You have to keep that very clearly in front of you. You have to see that when you speak about these things, because you're not just talking about, oh, maybe Anunnaki didn't come in and made hybrids the way they started out now. Maybe everything shifted, but that doesn't take away, though, that particular timeline of the Greys no longer exist and isn't valid as one linear exploration in itself either. So all of the linear explorations coexist parallel. They just widen up so much more than we can even imagine. And then there are versions of Earth. Like, I recently started to begin to grasp this, and I'm still probably just at the beginning. There are versions of Earth never mentioned before, where there were never Greys, where Anunnaki never visited, where, there are versions of humans that look nothing like everything that we have by now been introduced with. And then there are parallel versions in the non-physical, all still coexisting with us, that we can also very easily cross-connect with and have communication with in our lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences. It is so much richer and broader and wider than we can even imagine, that at some point, this is going to sound really crazy, but I've gotten so much of this wideness rather early in the early stages of the channeling, I stopped asking. Like, for myself, I just really enjoy being here and now and hearing the information for this moment and this moment, because even our higher selves in every single moment are a new version of themselves. Like, a lot of people have a static image of the higher self, but I love it. Yeah, it's insane. But every single version of you, every split nanosecond version of you, every Planck length version of you has another higher self that fits that version of you, because that higher self has to navigate this version of you that decided to do that instead of that. So it's like this fractal. The only image that fits what we are, what we actually are, is a fractal that keeps birthing new fractals, and it's going on and on and on. And I'm just beginning to realize, like, how it's like walking through molasses trying to put this into words in this density. But the only thing that remains is the excitement. I'm so in love with our transition right now, and I really cannot put that in words. It's so hard to share that, but that's the magic. And
I'm glad, Wieteke, you're sort of affirming. So a couple weeks ago, I called Gita up, kind of giddy and excited, because what you're saying now is exactly the same sort of download I was getting while I was editing the Sean video, and yeah, even though right now I sort of like made this comparison to pre Adam and Eve, but that's just to break our minds of what we had been expecting, or we had been sort of told through Bashar channelings and through some of the information, some of the older information. Even Arjun has given us that the story of the hybrid they're part of this fifth hybrid race, which is true, but yet everything is so fluid and transitioning, and by every moment that we're experiencing and moving forward into, everything in the past shifts. The stories aren't locked into place in this linear way, and like you were, going back to our conversation previously, this Trinity consciousness just opens the door to so many possibilities that we really can't predict and say this is the way it is, because what we say it is today is going to shift tomorrow, and
next second.
in the next second, right? So all of these shifting stories, and even the story, because Sean, what Aisha was coming through when my interview at that time was so vastly sort of different than the standard Yahyel story that we're used to hearing, and I think that was done on purpose to help us shift and not get fixed on one specific story, because we're in this Trinity consciousness that we're moving into, that it all goes, right? We have access to so many different timelines and so many different ideas. It's really just which one are we in alignment with now, and to try to predict the future. And this is why I was so excited, but yet I sort of had in my mind, this is how it's all going to unfold, based on all of the channelings and Bashar's information and everybody, and I'm following all of you guys, right? So I'm getting all these questions, and I'm like, I've got it all figured out. This is exactly how, this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I was sort of like giddy and losing it, because I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. This is crazy. And so that just what you just said, Wieteke, sort of reinforces this download that I was getting, a few weeks ago about what is the Yahyel and how are they going to come and interact with us, and what is this, I like all of us, humans, we like to put things in a nice categorized package, and that's sort of, my goal with the series was sort of to categorize things, to say, these are the Pleiadians, this is the reptilians, and those are the Syrians, and this is this, and this is that, and these are these archetypes, and this is how it's all going to unfold. I have no idea now. It's just whatever's going to happen.
And that's the fundamental insight you need to even begin channel a being like in this way. I think for me to stop asking the questions at some point, it was necessary, because I would get in my own way if I continued insisting and wanting to see, because I have a rational mind just like everybody else that wants to, kind of longs to, categorize, like we have been raised to believe we need. But this is the Pandora's box. When we can find ease and stability in our own center, those things look as if they are one big jumble. Then a new kind of stability enters our awareness, and it no longer insists on seeing proof outside in a certain order or manner or form.
Yep. Yeah, and that correlates with the download I got just 2 days ago. That's exactly it. Because we're always looking in our outside world to validate who we are. When now in this new paradigm, our outside world is going to is still reflection, but it's going to give us so many options, that if we look to validate ourselves into the outside world, we're going to go crazy. We're not going to.
You're going to feel more lost eventually.
Yeah. So you have no choice but to go within. We're sort of. We can't look outside anymore, and it's sort of going to be, the energy we're moving into is going to really intensify for the planet now. Like I was saying in the last video, there's no more room for bullshit. We've really got to get centered and move forward in this centered space.
Maybe I can add a little bit to what we just shared. There is, however, this is almost like I am giving a little cookie to the left brain, after all. So there is, however, when now people are watching this maybe and thinking, oh my God, there's like no order. No, there is no order, but there is logic and there is relevance. So there is actually something that narrows everything down a little bit again. So in every given moment, this is what I also observe, Bashar is doing very, very specific. Every single time there is a download for a group, the Sasani and every other hybrid race that we are in open communication with, they scan our group collective consciousness and they tune in how much is relevant for us right now to know. So they give the little next tidbit. And this is why they don't pull in all of a sudden a timeline of, say, a version of Earth where dinosaurs are the new humans. That's how it evolved there. And they're wearing fancy suits and stuff. Oh, I can totally see them right now. So they're not just pulling that in and then talk about that for 15 minutes straight, because it's not relevant. We are right now in a particular bandwidth of exploration that does involve the Yahyel, the way he describes the Yahyel have originated. And that is what I see from my own experiences with the hybridization project and the grace that I saw as a child. And it does all fit in like smoothly. It's very beautiful. But the other thing is also true. So this is the A and the B, and the seeing had it both. That yes, there is this relevance, broadband or bandwidth for us all, and then there is a bigger version that is also true, and they coexist, and we're just moving through both of them.
And we're getting like you said, there's nowhere to go but deeper in, right? Yeah. At this point. But then we're also really entering into fully the navigating. Like I just got to kind of sit and watch this, right? And I'm like, well, I'm going within, but this is my reflection. Like that, whoa. And then so more and more we're going to be getting the external mirrors to validate the internal journey, the internal reflection. But then it just turns us back in into the self to keep doing the integrating. Yeah, the work. Yeah, the deeper work. Yeah. And yeah, I love what you're saying too about like all of the details necessary, that all of this, you stopped asking about their actual civilization and certain things because it's not relevant. And for me, when the contact first came in, I had so many questions where I was so confused. Are you an ET? Are you future Earth? Is there even a difference? And what does that mean? And yeah.
I had the same question.
Yeah.
Wasn't Bella coming through as a hybrid child?
At first she was. So when that first happened to me, that was probably about 6 or 8 years ago when the energy first started coming in, and I had all of these questions. And then, honestly, like I feel like I kind of got tricked, or I chose to trick myself a little bit, or because I was under the impression that she was from what we're calling the Shalanaya. Hybrid children, and it came through in this way very much as a child first, and it was a way for me to gleam onto her energy and to do it really smoothly. And then in certain channelings she started coming upline or in her future, and it was this way different energy. And then I was starting to get confused because then she was talking about the children like they were a different group. And because then I had the experience of feeling like an elder, seeing it through her, and the Shell and I were different. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? And then I actually got confirmation from a friend of mine whose name is Steve that works for Bashar Communications doing their sound and lighting. And he's my bud, and we were hanging out one day, and he was like, so I'm really happy that, you're sharing your Bella stuff, but I've been wanting to share something with you for a while, and I'm telling you now because I know it's time for you to hear it. I actually asked Bashar at one point, because they do, like, Bashar Communications has, like, Christmas parties, and they all go over to Daryl's house, and he brings Bashar through, and they ask questions. Really sweet. And he shared with me that Steve had asked Bashar if Bashar knew of Bella, or Isabel, because at that point, too, she was representing herself as Isabel. And Bashar said, oh, we're all laughing because her name is Bella, and she's from the Yahyel. This was years ago. This was maybe 3 years ago. So Steve had kind of like been holding this like little tidbit of information that he had gotten from Bashar. And Bella had already started transitioning at this point. She had already started getting older. I was having the awareness of it being something different. And then Steve actually gave me this message that he had been given from Bashar. And at that point I was like, boom, like it all just kind of exploded for me. And I also realized that I think we talked about this too, but I was confused about what's the first hybrid race, the second hybrid, the third, the fourth, like whatever, right? And so I was under the impression that the Yahyel was the fourth hybrid race, but actually they're the fifth, and Bella's the sixth, seventh, 1, 2, 3, what? I think it was done very strategically for me to know that it's not really the point. It's the information, and it's everything that we're learning and everything that we're talking about and sharing today. So I very much resonate with a trickster archetype, and so does Bella, and I think it was very strategically done. But now I think I'm on track with at least what's relevant for us, which is, we're calling her Bella, and she's from the Yahyel, fifth hybrid race, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see, or the next second what line we shift to.
This is such a beautiful example of moving through your own Pandora's box before you feel, okay, now I can like throw out, even if it is an illusionary anchor, and just like sit and have it flow, because you have to get that chatterbox of your left brain half, your mind, your rational, out of the way, that is still having all of these questions and the numbers and the types, all of this that wants to label, like you just described. So it's a really beautiful example of, I think, what a lot of beginning channelers are moving through, and that I completely recognized every single bit we spoke about in our earlier conversation. Like all these stages, I so get it. For the longest time, up until actually it was really, truly clarified with the amount of races, I was always thinking there are 3 hybrid races. Like, that's what I really thought, because I have only seen 3. But this is just, taking what you see as a fact. So, grace and 3 hybrid races. So, I was thinking, Arjun it's 5th, I'm okay, it's 5th, but then, 1 and 2, how does that work? And only now Bashar has explained 1 and 2 are grace. It's starting to sink in, okay, so on eyesight, I would have labeled the last 3 as hybrids and the first 2 not. But that's the picture, you see? Because as a child, I also experienced grace and hybrids. Like, very different. But that's because of the energy frequency is entirely different. Now, Bashar has explained that the grays are actually hybrids themselves. And now it makes sense. Now the numerology makes sense. But I'm still, so I do admit, I do ask questions. So I did ask Arjun, so how does that work? How are they hybridized then? Because it started off the same way. We're all hybrids with the Anunnaki all the way back. How are they hybridized from how we look at ourselves, 5 fingers and all of that, into with the big skull and all of that. And he told me there is a lot of genetic manipulation, a lot of hybridization that went into them looking the way they look as grays from their human timeline. So now I can see, okay, yes, of course you can call that hybrids to them. But it took me a while. And that's another rational mind thing. So did you?
Yeah, and I love the Pandora's box analogy that we keep using, in which really beautiful about that is within Pandora's box, we realize that there is no box.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really
Right,
what
exactly.
we're
We
really
create
getting
the
into.
box.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whatever is seemingly in it, it will always continue to come because you never stop exploring. There's no end to that anyway.
I just got the it all comes down to the now, to the perfect time, which is now, and everything, all of these stories, all of the hybrid races and Bashar's transmissions and transmissions from Arjun and Bella are ultimately just here to help us navigate this now moment and what's relevant. So and our higher selves, our future selves, these other versions that we're channeling through, are our guides, because they know. Sometimes I hate to say it, but they know us better than we know ourselves, because they are us, right?
Luckily they do.
They seem to be a little more in tune to us than we are, because we've created this ego structure to exist in this this paradigm.
That's the structure of what we've done. That's
Right.
just the playing field of the human experience.
Right.
That's how learning. Yeah.
Exactly, and they're helping us to, get on the same page, so to say. And they know what nuggets of information that will help us get onto that path. So it's all a hologram. It's all an illusion. It's all not necessarily real. So let's just drop a little nugget here to get, and that'll help them get onto this path. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't. Again, all truths are true, so it doesn't really matter. And we put so much weight. Well, it's got to be this. They said this, so therefore it's that. And we're like, no. And all of these nuggets of information are ultimately to get us to where we are now, having this conversation that we don't know what it is. It's and ultimately that's the I think the direction to this ultimate truth is to free us. And this is again going back to this. This version 3 weeks ago where I was sort of giddy and excited, because really understanding all Bashar's messages and the story and the 5 hybrid races and all of these stories that are being told to us, and which is us telling ourselves that these stories, in order for us to free us of this, the permission slip. Bashar is a permission slip. Arjun's a permission slip. Bella's a permission slip. All of this stuff is just a permission slip for us to get to a story, so we can evolve and get to a place where we can be of a vibrational frequency of Bashar to then eventually release all stories and just flow in synchronicity 24/7, and have access to the universal consciousness information and all of this stuff. But we don't need to put so much weight on all of these stories. They're just there as a tool to move us forward in our evolution.
Everything is a symbol. As long as we are focused in this dimension, whether you are being offered a new house to live in or whether you have a download in a dream, the form our minds translate it into right now, even when you just watch the transmission. When I had a conversation with Arjun, of course there is a limitation between the things that they can transmit to us right now, because there is a frequential gap. So they feed us symbols. We are working with symbols right now. Everything is an illusion. So you're completely right, and I love that you said that, and it so much helps lighten things up for people, especially within this community, that perhaps find themselves standing opposed of each other with different opinions, because eventually that too is a symbol that you attract somebody who is speaking to you in that manner, because maybe you're not in agreement with some things for yourself. It's so fun to just know that all of this is here to assist us, if you choose to look at it that way, and then it all just comes down to unconditional love. And I love to know that and to be reminded of that through these kind of messages, through Bella or Arjun or Bashar, whoever, and people that I know, and a dog in the street, and a story on YouTube. I mean, it's all beautiful.
Well, very cool.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Gita.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's all been... That's the reasoning why it's all come through in these different ways. And there is the aspect where it's all just a symbol, and it's all about how we can perceive it and how we choose in each moment. But then there is, like you were saying before, there is kind of a smoothness to it where things kind of are falling into place enough just for it to tell a story. Just enough for us to be able to tell it as a story so that more people potentially outside of this community, so more of us within the community can start to understand that, oh, we can tell this as a story, present it as, you know, a concept, as a metaphor, so that people outside of our little, you know, bubble can start to just hear the story, and then story can do its work of, you know, initiating and inviting people into their own understandings of ultimate unconditional love and wisdom and light and all of that, all the real stuff. But it's the story that each person can get their own interpretation of, like the morality tale or the fable at the end of the story.
Yes, exactly. Because we use language, because we are oriented in that manner, and this is apparently the way we communicate right now. So the story structure is just our audio way of sending each other telepathic downloads. So, but at some point that will no longer be necessary to go through that particular route. It's just where we are in now. But I also feel very strongly that is overlapping already with the remembrance of the fact that we could have instant knowledge. We can, but to be consciously aware of that, and people are beginning to remember that, which is super fun.
And one of the additional downloads I got on the Eclipse was that we the three of us were having this sort of cosmic connection to these other entities in this channeling format. There are many people on this planet who have a deep resonance to the biblical, religious, not just the Christian way, but there are other stories and archetypes in the religious contexts that people resonate deeply with and have for centuries. And they are, they don't have to accept the story that we're saying, but yet they're in their own right, in their own way, they will, because of the energy and the frequencies coming into the planet, their stories will start to transmute and shift into a one of resonance, just as our stories are shifting. Like we thought the aliens are this, and this is that, and this is this, but yet now our concepts and our perceptions of how reality works and how things exist are starting to be watered down, and more options and more things are being available, and that's a possibility and this is a possibility. So just as we're evolving through our evolution of buying into the cosmic story of different alien races giving us this information, people who are in
their story,
and people who are who have been buying into the religious context that have been so instilled into this planet for so long, will still remain in that story structure, but yet their version of how they get their information, whether it's from God or different deities or different ideas of higher information, they may not believe in the alien thing as we do,
right,
but yet in the same context or in a similar context, their stories will start to be watered down, more relaxed, more accepting of other belief systems and ideas, but yet they may not fully get onto the alien thing, but yet they still are going to evolve within their story structure, if that makes sense. This was sort of what I was getting downloaded the other day during the eclipse, was because I was at this I think it's a portal area. There was this, but I could feel a strong Christian religious context to that portal. And the information I was getting was that the hybrid kids are going to be coming through that area, but for them it's not going to be perceived, because of their belief structures in the Christian religion. They're not going to perceive them as alien kids from another space. It's going to come through in a different way, maybe in a more fantastical, when I say fantastical, a more, I don't know how, I don't have that belief system, so I don't know exactly how it's going to come through, but these kids will still come through, but through a different belief system that allows them to accept them in that way, but not in the ideas that we have as the hybrid children. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does. In art school, I learned a lot about art history, and a lot of storytelling before people could even read, obviously, went through images. And a lot of angels, and especially Cupid angels, are children. So it's very easy to draw that line and see how throughout history children are the symbol for innocence and unconditional love in that sense. So it very smoothly fits in with Christianity and many other religions as well.
Until then, all of these belief systems then converge to a universal belief system that we can all accept without, unconditionally, right? So this is why I had this idea of I have no idea how this is all going to unfold. Like, we have us being in the alien ET realms, we see it this way. We see it with these eyes, Other people are going to see it with different eyes. And then eventually there's going to be a convergence where all of humanity sees it with the same eyes. And until we get to that same eyes convergence, there's going to be a lot of, who knows what's going to happen, right? This is the unknown. This is what's exciting, is to see how it all unfolds. But we have to integrate, because we're sharing this planet, we're sharing this collective experience. We have to integrate these other belief systems into our belief system. We don't have to. I guess we could go our own way, but eventually we are going to merge these belief systems. Angels, fairies, these different deities. It all goes. It all exists.
I think with integrate, you mean because we are all raising our resonance, or at least let's just say the group that shifts to the same into the same direction will eventually find themselves and each other on such a much stronger, like-minded, actually like-hearted wavelength that we don't even have to integrate a different other path anymore, because we will just find each other. It doesn't take effort anymore. You will look somebody in the eyes and you will just know. There's nothing to explain, nothing to ask. We are eventually one. This will be understood. I fully believe that we're heading there. Yeah.
And I think along the way of us getting there, we are going to get to connect some of our myths, or some of we are going to get the chance, I feel like, to have that logical mind is going to get satiated a little bit.
So it's this dance between the both. So there's different storylines, and of course we're going to create some beautiful challenges along the way. But eventually, the resonance will be understood to be our true nature, and you can navigate on that, which is, oh my God, I love it. And we can do that now. We can do that now.
Well, it's kind of like science.
We are doing it.
Yes, we are.
We are doing it. Well, it's kind of, I'm a very, logical, thinker, I believe. And I think it's kind of like science, where, a theory has to be proven and going into the laboratories. And science is sort of the universal accepted truth, universal in the sense of our human universe, our human collective. Like a lot of people like, oh, well, that's been scientifically proven, so that's okay. So we can accept that, right? So I think a lot of these beliefs and ideas and religions, and ET beliefs and all this stuff is there's going to be sort of they're going to be tested. They're going to be taken into the laboratories and seen, what works and what doesn't, and people are going to have to figure it all out, and the official story is going to be released to the public, and everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, that's how that works, and then that's our sort of our universal resonance, or our human coherence state is sort of science is sort of a way to measure that. Not saying that it's all going to be scientific, because that's going too much into the mind, but blending these religious concepts, the elementals, the fairies, the old stories, the old biblical archetypes, all of this stuff integrating to a universal acceptable story, whatever that's going to be. We don't know. That's what's exciting, I guess.
Yeah.
I actually, this ties in. It's kind of more of a logical, kind of just detailed question for you, Wieteke, because I'm just curious, because I made the connection a couple of weeks ago that Arjun, being that you channel, and then there's Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, and that's like the character that we follow. So I'm just curious if you've made that connection before, if Arjun has said, is it?
I know, yeah, no, especially people from India have asked me about this. Is it that Arjun? Don't you miss an A? Hey, we are just back to the Arjuna. So maybe that's even a little joke just for me right there.
Yeah. But I don't. It's totally possible that it could be. I don't think it's necessarily the same. Obviously, it's a different being, but there could be some connection and some through line within the souls. But also, I found it really interesting. Maybe just looking at me, because I got my name Gita from, I told the story in a little video that I made, that it just kind of happened to me. It was, my given name is Marjorie and Margarita, and then Gita was like a nickname. And then when I put that connection after you and I connected, I was like, whoa, interesting. So if anything, it's just a synchronicity, and I see synchronicities in this way where kind of like my more logical mind, my searching mind gets really curious, and almost like clues of breadcrumbs to follow of different aspects that they have already included in this greater mythology that winds in all of these different topics and different belief systems, like you're talking about, Reuben, and the Sasani have also kind of hinted at that they have potential soul connections with the Essenes and different groups that were in the Middle East at different times in our ancient history. So there is a through line of the same kind of teachings or school of thought or level of mastery that is being presented in all of us channeling, which is fascinating to see happen.
Absolutely. I'm super curious about the unfolding of all of this. But that area, and also India being one of the countries where so many different religions are being mixed. Actually, Reuben, what you just shared as a kind of a route of evolution where everybody will eventually meet each other. So I traveled through India and for a few months, and at some point, there's people there. It is so beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Just for the sake of being on the safe side, they are Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim. They're everything. So they have this like in their house, they have this altar with all of them. There's like Mary, Jesus, Muhammad, everybody is right there, and they're all being honored. And I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. I mean, unless it perhaps comes from a very like scared belief system, like a fear-based belief system, that to be really just on the safe side, I'm just going to honor all the gods because maybe one of them is real and then they will punish me if I don't honor them. So unless it's really from that, I saw so much beauty in that. I was like, wow, everything has already merged here. We could learn so much from that. So there were regions where I observed that all being mixed. And isn't it so much like, young people today intuitively understand that you can just take from stuff in the world what you need, use that and move on. So it's like the internet. You can choose your own studies. It's all custom made. You can surf with it, and create your own reality. And I think we're beginning to really remember that, and it's reflected by that. But definitely the region, and Gita, your name, and Arjun, I did put it together just before we had our Skype call, and I was fascinated by it. I still am. So I'm very curious to see where that will lead, as a hint.
Yeah.
Those tricksters.
So tricky, so fun. Yeah. And we're all like, a lot of times my friends have used, and I've used, and the guides have used the analogy of a buffet.
Uh-huh.
Like there's the blueprint buffet, and we're all deciding what to put on the plate.
Right.
And
exactly.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah, instead of in the olden days, you would just pick one dish and that would be it. This is very different. This is a very different time.
And and we have so many different cultures and ideas and religions and belief systems here on this planet. And I think this is what, this is why all the ET races are so fascinated with Earth and sort of watching us in this convergence of unionizing the human race in this way. So it's very unique and special, and there's a lot to bring together here. So I think the buffet is quite vast in its selections, and
I've had dreams. I've had so many dreams where I'm in this like crazy, like the kind of food like you would imagine like seeing in Japan. You're like, what is that? What? And it's just like mirrors on top of mirrors, and just like tables of like bizarre food and exotic ideas, and yeah.
And some of that stuff doesn't mix. It's like orange juice and milk. How do you that doesn't set well in the stomach. So we have to. We're sort of as. Us three here having this conversation, trying to bring it all together, and we have our cosmic friends helping us bring all of these stories together into one coherent belief system, which is obviously unconditional love, acceptance, non-judgment, and no expectations. The Bashar formula, all of these things are helping us get to this place where we can enjoy the entire buffet without throwing up.
It's true, yeah. So, yeah, and we're doing it. We're so in our process of doing it.
Yeah, and we are. It's great, and it's unfolding. Yeah. It's beautiful, and and I love these conversations, and I appreciate this time that you guys have allocated to do this. I think we definitely have more of these coming down the path, down the road, as we integrate more of this energy. We're just about another hour in here, so maybe we should wrap this one up. And I appreciate your guys' time. Is there any final finishing points you guys want to add?
Just thank you and gratitude and love and yay!
Awesome.
Thank you both of you for helping to bring this all together more and more, and I'm so excited to see where it goes from here. And if we do end up sharing this, so much thanks and love to everyone watching, and kind of like facilitating, I feel like, this all coming together a little bit more. I so fully feel the community and kind of like our group or our, you know, our cast of characters that are all really coming together to be able to do this. So hello everyone, and thank you, and yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and keep on shining.
Very much so. Thank you so much. Namaste, guys.
Thank you. Namaste.